April 17, 1943. On a secluded testing facility 30 kilometers outside Berlin, Oberstleutnant Heinrich Weber stared at the small rectangular tin sitting on his desk, its label partially torn but still legible. Spam. Hormel's spiced ham. The air raid sirens had fallen silent just hours ago, and the morning sun cast long shadows across the laboratory. Weber believed this insignificant American meat product was nothing more than another example of inferior Allied provisions. He would soon discover how deeply that assumption challenged everything the Reich had told him about American industrial capacity and warfighting potential. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. This is the story of how a simple tin of meat became the unlikely catalyst that forced Germany's brightest engineering minds to confront the shattering reality of American production capability, a revelation that would transform their understanding of the war they were fighting and ultimately, the war they could never win. The operation had been designated Evaluation of Enemy Provisions, Case 327, a routine analysis of captured Allied supplies. Weber, a brilliant chemical engineer with a doctorate from Heidelberg and chief of the Wehrmacht's Food Research Division, had personally requested this assignment after Allied ration tins began appearing in increasing numbers across multiple fronts. His superior, General Major Ernst Hoffmann, considered it a waste of resources. "We have more pressing concerns than American lunch meat," Weber, Hoffmann had remarked dismissively. "But if you insist on examining garbage, I won't stop you." That morning, Weber assembled his team in the main laboratory. Dr. Greta Muller, a food scientist specializing in preservation techniques, Dr. Klaus Schmidt, an industrial manufacturing expert, and Lieutenant Karl Bauer, a logistics officer with a background in agricultural economics. Their tasks seemed straightforward: analyze the composition, manufacturing process, nutritional value, and production requirements of this American meat product. "Gentlemen, and Dr. Muller, this may appear trivial," Weber addressed his team, holding up the tin. "But understanding enemy supply capabilities is crucial to understanding their fighting capacity. We begin with this. Spam." Dr. Schmidt examined the tin with skeptical curiosity. "American efficiency usually means cutting corners. I suspect we'll find this loaded with fillers and chemicals, typical of their mass production mentality." Bauer nodded in agreement. "Their soldiers probably hate it. No German would consider this proper food." Only Dr. Muller remained silent, carefully examining the perfect seam of the tin, running her finger along the uniform edge. 20 years earlier, she had visited Chicago's meatpacking plants as a young student. Something about the precision of this container troubled her assumptions. The team began their analysis. Weber carefully opened the tin, revealing a uniform pink block of meat. The laboratory filled with a distinctive aroma, salty, slightly sweet, with hints of pork and spices. Their first observation was the consistency, remarkably uniform with no visible separation of fat or gristle. "Take note of the precision," Weber instructed as he sliced the meat block into perfect cubes. "Each portion is identical. We'll need chemical analysis, nutritional breakdown, preservation examination, and manufacturing evaluation." As they worked, Dr. Schmidt kept detailed notes on the tin itself. "The container is remarkably consistent, 3.15 millimeters thick throughout, double-seamed with no variations. The material is high-grade tin-plated steel, surprisingly uniform for mass production." He frowned. This would require precision manufacturing equipment operating at high volume. Simultaneously, in the food analysis lab, Dr. Muller conducted a series of tests. Protein content is 21.7%, higher than our Wehrmacht rations at 18.2%. Fat content is 27%, primarily animal-derived. Sodium for preservation, but no evidence of chemical stabilizers or significant fillers. She looked up, puzzled. "This is essentially high-quality ground pork shoulder and ham with salt, water, sugar, and minimal preservatives. It's simple, but remarkably effective for mass distribution." By mid-afternoon, Lieutenant Bauer had calculated the logistics. "Based on our analysis and captured supply manifests, we estimate Americans are producing these at a rate of approximately 15 million tins monthly. According to labels, production is centralized in Austin, Minnesota, by this Hormel company. Weber's brow furrowed. 15 million monthly? That can't be correct. Recalculate. Bauer double-checked his figures. Confirmed, sir. Furthermore, evidence suggests this is just one of several meat products being mass-produced for military consumption and distribution worldwide. There are similar products. Treat, from Armour, Moore from Wilson, and others. Dr. Schmidt laughed incredulously. Impossible. The machinery required for this level of precision at such volume would be extraordinary. Germany's entire meat canning production doesn't exceed 3 million units monthly, and that's across multiple facilities. That evening, Weber sat alone in his office, troubled by their findings. He drafted a request for additional Allied food samples and intelligence on American food production. His brief report to General Major Hoffman concluded, "Initial analysis suggests unexpected efficiency in American food manufacturing capabilities. Further investigation warranted." 3 weeks later, Weber's laboratory had transformed. The walls were lined with hundreds of identical Spam tins, alongside dozens of other American ration items. Additional intelligence had arrived: production statistics, factory photographs, and reports from German agents in America before the war. The team gathered around a large table covered with maps and documents. Weber's expression was grim as he addressed them. "What I'm about to share contradicts much of what we've been told about American industrial capacity. This information is classified at the highest level." He unfolded a large aerial photograph. "This is Austin, Minnesota. Population approximately 18,000. In this small town, the Hormel factory alone is producing nearly 15 million cans of Spam monthly on automated production lines. Before the war, their hourly output was already at 18,000 cans. They've since doubled it." Dr. Schmidt looked stunned. "That's nearly 400,000 cans daily from a single facility in a town smaller than many Berlin neighborhoods." Weber continued, pointing to another photograph. "This is the Armour plant in Chicago. Similar production rates for their comparable product. And here, Wilson and Company in Chicago. Again, similar volumes." Lieutenant Bauer, who had been analyzing supply logistics, spoke up. "Sir, our updated estimates indicate American meatpacking plants are producing enough canned meat to supply approximately 11 million soldiers indefinitely. And this represents only about 30% of their total production capacity. The remainder continues to feed their civilian population." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Muller broke the silence. "The nutritional content is consistent across all samples. This isn't wartime rationing. It's standard American production, redirected toward military needs." Weber walked to a map of Europe marked with German food production centers. "For comparison, our entire Reich currently struggles to adequately supply 7 million soldiers, and our civilian rationing grows more severe monthly. Our production is hampered by raw material shortages, bombing, and labor constraints." Dr. Schmidt examined the American tin again, his previous condescension replaced with grudging admiration. "The manufacturing precision is remarkable. These tins are identical down to the millimeter. The sealing technology alone would require advanced machinery our factories can't match at these volumes." As their investigation deepened, a larger pattern emerged, one that extended far beyond mere meat products. Dr. Muller conducted additional nutritional tests comparing the American ration to German equivalents. "Our soldiers receive approximately 2,800 calories daily when supplies are optimal, which is increasingly rare," she reported. "American field rations consistently provide 3,600 calories. Their K rations alone contain more protein than our frontline troops receive in 2 days." Weber reviewed her findings with growing concern. "And their supply chain ensures consistent delivery?" According to captured documents, Bauer interjected, "American logistics units maintain a 45-day reserve of rations at all times. We struggle to maintain a 7-day reserve on most fronts." Weber considered the implications. "So their soldiers fight with the confidence that supplies will never run out, while ours increasingly worry about their next meal." Dr. Schmidt had been examining other captured American provisions: chocolate bars, cigarettes, coffee, canned fruits. The packaging consistency across different products suggests standardized machinery operating at extraordinary scale. This level of industrial coordination requires not just technology, but sophisticated management systems. Weber nodded. We need to expand our investigation beyond food. Request all available intelligence on American industrial conversion to war production. Captain Friedrich Keller, an intelligence officer attached to Weber's expanding investigation, arrived 3 days later with new information. Short and precise in both physique and speech, Keller had been collecting data on broader American production capabilities. The issue extends far beyond food, Keller explained, spreading documents across Weber's desk. American factories converted to military production are achieving output levels our intelligence previously deemed impossible. He pointed to a report from a German agent in Detroit. A single Ford Motor Company plant at Willow Run is producing one B-24 Liberator bomber every hour, approximately 650 monthly. Our combined Heinkel facilities struggle to produce 60 He-111 bombers in the same period. Weber felt a chill. One plant produces 10 times our entire production capacity. Keller nodded grimly. The plant was built specifically for this purpose in 1941. Over 40,000 workers, many of them women with no previous manufacturing experience, operating on assembly lines nearly a mile long. Dr. Schmidt, who had joined them, examined the photographs of the Willow Run facility. This contradicts everything we've been told about American industrial inefficiency. There's more, Keller continued. Liberty ships, they're standard cargo vessels. Early in the war, it took them about 240 days to build one. By applying mass production techniques, they've reduced construction time to 42 days. One shipyard in California, the Kaiser Richmond facility, recently completed a vessel in just over 4 days. Weber had heard enough. He drafted an urgent report to General Major Hoffman and the High Command, detailing their findings on American production capabilities and the strategic implications. 3 days later, Hoffman himself appeared at the laboratory, accompanied by 2 SS officers. His usual bombastic manner was subdued. Weber, your report has caused quite a stir. Some at High Command consider it defeatist propaganda. He glanced nervously at the SS officers. You've been summoned to present your findings directly. On May 30th, 1943, Weber found himself standing before a group of senior military and government officials in a secure conference room beneath the Reich Chancellery. Albert Speer, Reich Minister of Armaments and War Production, studied him with intense interest. Oberstleutnant Weber, Speer began. Your report makes extraordinary claims about American production capabilities. Many here find them difficult to believe. Convince us. For the next hour, Weber methodically presented his team's findings, supported by Keller's intelligence. He displayed the American ration tins, explained their manufacturing process, and outlined the staggering production statistics. From a simple tin of meat, Weber concluded, we've uncovered evidence of production capacity that exceeds our own by factors of 5 to 10 across virtually all war material categories. America is not only feeding its massive military and civilian population, but simultaneously supplying significant portions of British and Soviet requirements. A heavy silence filled the room. Finally, Speer spoke. If these figures are accurate, they have profound implications for our war strategy. General Alfred Jodl, Chief of the Operations Staff of the Armed Forces High Command, appeared less convinced. This seems exaggerated. Our intelligence has consistently reported American quality control issues and production inefficiencies. Weber responded carefully. Respectfully, General, our pre-war intelligence appears to have catastrophically underestimated American industrial potential. Their approach to manufacturing, standardized parts, assembly line processes, and emphasis on volume over craftsmanship, has proven extraordinarily effective for wartime needs. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel interjected. But surely their equipment is inferior? Our Panthers can destroy 5 Shermans each. Yes, Field Marshal, Weber acknowledged. But they produce 15 Shermans for each Panther. And while our tanks require extensive maintenance by specialized technicians, their Shermans can be repaired quickly by average soldiers using standardized parts. When our tanks break down, they often stay broken. When there's breakdown, they're rapidly repaired or simply replaced. Admiral Karl Donitz, skeptical but increasingly troubled, Asked about shipbuilding comparisons, Weber presented the figures. Our most efficient shipyards require approximately 12 months to produce a submarine. American shipyards are now completing Liberty ships in less than 2 weeks. The Kaiser Shipyard in Richmond, California, recently completed the SS Robert E. Peary in 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes from keel laying to launch. Donuts paled. Impossible. I verified the reports personally, Keller confirmed. Their technique is modular construction, building sections simultaneously in different locations, then assembling them like building blocks. It's less elegant than our methods, but devastatingly effective for mass production. The debate continued for hours. Eventually, Speer requested Weber's team be integrated into his ministry to continue their analysis and help adjust German production strategies accordingly. As Weber left the meeting, Speer walked with him briefly. "Your discovery may change our entire approach to this war," he said quietly. "We've been fighting as though victory is achievable through superior German engineering and fighting spirit. If your assessment is correct, we are facing an industrial juggernaut that cannot be matched, merely delayed." Over the following months, Weber's team expanded their investigation. They analyzed captured American equipment, from combat boots to Sherman tanks, always finding the same pattern: standardized designs optimized for mass production rather than technical perfection. German engineering philosophy had always emphasized quality, precision, and technological superiority. American production emphasized simplicity, standardization, and overwhelming volume. Dr. Schmidt spent weeks studying the manufacturing tolerances of various American equipment. "Their approach is fundamentally different from ours," he explained during a briefing. German engineers designed to perfection, seeking the ideal solution regardless of production complexity. American engineers designed for mass production first, accepting good enough performance if it means simplified manufacturing. Weber nodded. "And in war, which approach is proving more effective?" "Overwhelmingly the American approach," Schmidt admitted reluctantly. "Their Sherman tank is technically inferior to our Panthers and Tigers in armor and firepower. But they've produced over 40,000 Shermans while we've managed fewer than 6,000 Panthers and Tigers combined. Their soldiers joke about these tanks, calling them Ronsons, because they light first every time when hit. Yet they keep coming in endless numbers." Dr. Muller had been studying captured American field manuals and training materials. Their technical documentation reflects this philosophy too. Instructions are simplified, illustrated, standardized across different equipment. They design not just for production, but for ease of maintenance by average soldiers with minimal training. Lieutenant Bauer, reviewing logistics data, noted another pattern. American supply systems are built on redundancy and volume rather than efficiency. They accept waste as a necessary cost of ensuring abundance at the front. When we lose one supply truck, we meticulously redistribute remaining resources. When they lose one, they simply send 10 more. In August 1943, Weber's team compiled a comprehensive report titled Comparative Analysis of Allied Production Capabilities. The findings were staggering. America was producing a new merchant ship every 10 hours, a new warship every 15 days, a new bomber every 60 minutes, and enough canned rations to feed 11 million soldiers indefinitely, all while maintaining civilian food supplies at pre-war levels. When the report reached Hitler, he dismissed it as Jewish propaganda and ordered its suppression. But among the more pragmatic military leadership, the reality was sinking in. During this period, Dr. Muller made another discovery. She had been analyzing the psychological impact of food supplies on troop morale, interviewing German soldiers returning from the Eastern Front. "Our men are starving," she reported to Weber. "Their rations are inconsistent, often spoiled." Meanwhile, captured Russian soldiers report receiving regular supplies of American canned meat. The psychological impact is devastating. "Our men see their enemies better fed than themselves," Lieutenant Bauer added. Soviet prisoners report American trucks delivering food almost directly to the front lines, thousands of vehicles carrying millions of rations. Their supply chain appears virtually unbreakable. This human dimension deepened Weber's understanding. It wasn't merely about production statistics. It was about the impact on fighting men and their morale. A well-fed army fights differently than a hungry one. On September 17, 1943, Weber received unexpected visitors at his laboratory, 3 American officers, prisoners of war being temporarily held for intelligence evaluation. Weber had requested the meeting, curious to hear first-hand accounts of American production. The senior officer, Major Robert Wilson, had been a production manager at General Motors before the war. When Weber inquired about American manufacturing capabilities, Wilson laughed. "You Germans still don't get it, do you?" Wilson said. "Before Pearl Harbor, President Roosevelt called for 50,000 planes a year. Our auto executives said it was impossible. By 1942, we were making 100,000. Detroit stopped making cars entirely and converted completely to war production in about 6 months." Captain James Miller, formerly employed at Hormel Foods, added details about food production. "Spam? That's just one product from one company. Austin is a small operation compared to Chicago. We're feeding not just our boys but the Brits, Russians, and plenty of others. Food's the one thing America has never been short on." The third officer, Lieutenant Thomas Reynolds, had worked in a Pennsylvania steel mill. "We're producing more steel than all Axis countries combined. One mill, Gary Works in Indiana, produces more than most European countries. And we're not even operating at full capacity." Weber was struck by their matter-of-fact confidence, devoid of propaganda or exaggeration. These weren't special intelligence officers, just ordinary Americans who understood their nation's industrial might. "What about quality?" Dr. Schmidt asked. "Surely mass production affects precision and performance?" Major Wilson shrugged. "Sure, we could make better stuff if we had the time. But war isn't about making the perfect weapon. It's about making enough weapons. Your Tiger tank might be better than our Sherman, but we'll make 20 Shermans for every Tiger. Your Me-262 jet might outperform our P-51 Mustang, but we'll darken the skies with Mustangs while you struggle to fuel your jets." Weber noticed the Americans showed no particular security concerns when discussing production figures. "Aren't you worried about sharing this information with us?" Captain Miller smiled. "What's to hide? The numbers are so big they sound like propaganda anyway. And besides, knowing our production capabilities won't help you match them. You simply don't have the industrial base, the natural resources, or the manufacturing philosophy to compete." Lieutenant Reynolds nodded. "Our secret isn't really a secret at all. It's just mass production. Ford perfected it with the Model T 30 years ago. We've just applied it to everything from bombers to boots to Spam. The assembly line is America's real superweapon." After the Americans left, Weber sat silently in his office, contemplating the implications. Germany had entered this war fundamentally misunderstanding what they were fighting against. America wasn't just another opponent. It was an industrial colossus that, once awakened, could not be matched. That evening, Weber wrote in his personal journal, "We began by examining a simple tin of meat and discovered the fatal flaw in our war strategy. We are fighting an enemy that can replace every tank, plane, and ship we destroy, and feed every soldier in the process, while our own resources dwindle. The Reich's leadership refuses to acknowledge this reality, but the outcome seems increasingly inevitable." As 1943 progressed into 1944, the evidence of American production supremacy became impossible to ignore. Allied bombing intensified, targeting German factories with devastating precision, while American equipment flooded every theater of war. In April 1944, Weber received a letter from Hans Schmidt, his cousin serving on the Eastern Front with the 11th Panzer Division. "The Russians come at us with endless supplies," Schmidt wrote. "Their soldiers carry American weapons, wear American boots, eat American food. Yesterday, we captured a Soviet supply depot, mountains of Spam, cigarettes from Virginia, trucks from Detroit. Their soldiers are well fed, while we receive smaller rations each month. How can we win against opponents with such abundant resources?" By June 1944, after the Normandy landings, the evidence became overwhelming. Allied forces poured into France with seemingly limitless supplies. Weber's team, now working directly under Speer's ministry, attempted to develop strategies to maximize Germany's dwindling resources against this industrial onslaught. In a private meeting, Speer confided to Weber, "Your analysis was correct. We are now fighting a war of attrition that we cannot win. For every German tank destroyed, the Americans produce 20. For every plane we lose, they build 30. Even if our equipment is superior, their numbers make resistance futile. As Allied forces pushed toward Germany from both east and west, Weber's research facility was relocated to Bavaria to protect it from bombing. His team continued analyzing captured Allied equipment, always finding the same pattern: standardized designs, interchangeable parts, and overwhelming volume. In December 1944, during the last major German offensive in the Ardennes, Weber received reports that American troops, temporarily cut off from supply lines, continued fighting effectively on emergency rations, including the now infamous Spam. German soldiers, meanwhile, were increasingly malnourished and demoralized. By January 1945, with Germany's defeat looming, Weber was ordered to destroy his research and evacuate to a mountain facility in Bavaria, where Nazi leadership hoped to make a final stand. Instead, he secretly preserved his most important findings, believing they contained crucial lessons for Germany's future. As Soviet forces approached Berlin in April 1945, Weber made his decision. Using contacts provided by Dr. Muller, whose Jewish husband had fled Germany in 1938, he arranged to surrender himself and his research to approaching American forces. On May 2, 1945, Weber crossed American lines near Berchtesgaden, carrying a single suitcase containing his crucial reports, detailed documentation of American production capabilities, and, symbolically, one of the original Spam tins that had launched his investigation. He was received by American intelligence officers, including Colonel William Donovan of the Office of Strategic Services. Weber explained who he was and offered his research as his surrender gift. "I began by studying this," he said, placing the Spam tin on Donovan's desk. "It led me to understand why Germany could never win this war. Your nation's productive capacity was the decisive factor, more important than any battle or weapon." Donovan examined the tin with amusement. "Spam? Our boys are sick of the stuff. They call it special army meat, though there are less polite interpretations." "That's precisely what makes it remarkable," Weber replied. "Your soldiers could afford to complain about abundant food while our men starved. America's worst problem was the monotony of plenty. Germany's was the reality of scarcity. We captured several of your factories intact," Donovan said, "and our engineers were surprised by your manufacturing approach. Beautiful, handcrafted components, precisely machined, almost like artisanal work. Impressive, but utterly impractical for modern warfare." Weber nodded sadly. "We maintained our pre-war emphasis on craftsmanship while you embraced mass production completely. We built masterpieces in limited quantities while you built adequate weapons in overwhelming numbers. The lesson was clear from the beginning if we had been willing to see it, but ideological blindness prevented us from recognizing reality until it was too late." In the months following Germany's surrender, Weber worked with American intelligence, helping analyze German wartime production and contributing to the Strategic Bombing Survey. His insights into how America's industrial might had overwhelmed German strategy provided valuable lessons for post-war planning. Dr. Muller emigrated to America, eventually joining the Food Science Department at Cornell University. Lieutenant Bauer returned to his pre-war profession as an agricultural economist, helping rebuild Germany's food production systems. Dr. Schmidt's expertise in manufacturing processes made him valuable to Germany's post-war recovery, particularly in the automotive industry. In 1955, a decade after the war, Weber accepted a teaching position at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, specializing in industrial production systems. In his first lecture to American engineering students, he held up a vintage Spam tin. "This humble object changed the course of history," he told them. While German engineers focused on building the perfect tank, America built thousands of good enough tanks. While we designed the ideal fighter plane, your factories produced fighters in numbers we couldn't match. And while we struggled to feed our forces, you fed not only your own military, but much of the world." He placed the tin on his desk. "The lesson is simple but profound. Quantity has a quality all its own. Germany lost the war not because of any single battle, but because we fundamentally misunderstood what we were fighting against. the unprecedented productive capacity of American industry, symbolized by this simple tin of meat. In 1970, George Hormel, son of the Hormel Foods founder, invited the now-retired Weber to visit the Spam factory in Austin, Minnesota. Walking through the massive facility, watching thousands of identical tins moving along the production line, Weber reflected on the journey that had brought him here. During the war, we produced approximately 150 million pounds of Spam for military use, Hormel explained proudly. Enough to feed millions of soldiers across every front. Weber nodded thoughtfully. A single American company feeding an army larger than Germany could field effectively. The irony is that most German leaders never understood this reality, even as it crushed them. Before leaving, Hormel presented Weber with a commemorative golden Spam tin. A reminder of how a simple food product helped win a war, he said. Weber accepted it with a bittersweet smile. Not the product itself, but what it represented, America's ability to produce unprecedented abundance, even in wartime. While German scientists built wonder weapons that changed nothing, American factories built mountains of ordinary equipment that changed everything. As an old man in the 1980s, Weber often reflected on the lesson he had learned from that first tin of Spam. Germany had entered the war believing in its technological superiority, the quality of its equipment, and the fighting spirit of its soldiers. None of that had mattered against the overwhelming productive capacity of the United States, a nation that could replace every loss, feed every soldier, and sustain war production indefinitely. The simple tin of meat had revealed the fundamental miscalculation of Nazi strategy. They had prepared to fight a war of tactics, technology, and territorial conquest, but found themselves in a war of industrial production, a war they could never win against the American manufacturing colossus. In his memoirs, completed shortly before his death in 1987, Weber wrote, "The greatest weapon America deployed against Germany was not the atomic bomb or the heavy bomber, but the assembly line and mass production techniques. Their victory was built in the factories of Detroit, the shipyards of California, and yes, the meatpacking plants of Minnesota." The humble tin of Spam on my desk reminds me daily of the lesson too few learned from history. Industrial capacity, not heroics or ideology, determines the outcome of modern warfare. And that concludes our story. If you made it this far, please share your thoughts in the comments. What part of this historical account surprised you most? Don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from World War II, and check out the video on screen for another incredible tale from history. Until next time.